Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go. So this morning we are talking all about failure and embracing failure. I don't know if we've talked about this before or not, because I feel like it's something which we probably have definitely talked about a little bit. We wanted to talk about this because we all like to succeed and get everything right and do everything perfectly. And it's almost like we want to get those ticks down the page, tick, tick, tick. Yes, we're all wonderful. And actually, you learn bugger all if that is the case. You don't grow, you don't expand. And actually, when I was thinking about this just a moment ago, I mean, having spent many years as a teacher, first a primary school teacher, then I had my intuition business. And I used to say to all the kids I teach, particularly things like maths, I would say to them, the last thing I want to see from anybody is a list of tick, tick, ticks down your page. I don't want you to get everything right, because if you get everything right, that means you're not challenging yourself. I want you to challenge yourself. So I used to let them pick their sort of like easy, middle, hard. And so it's like what we want is we want the mistakes. I want to see that you're not getting them right, because then that is how you learn, because you can go back and you can actually work out where you went wrong and then you can fix it. And that is the learning. That's where you get the growth. That's where you start to expand. And my goodness, even, the kids can find that so hard. They just want to get the ticks. And I think we're all the same. We just want to get everything. We want to show everyone, yes, everything's perfect and wonderful. But life is not like that. And you just don't move anywhere if you're just constantly staying within your kind of zone of, what's that word I'm looking for?
Zone of
your comfort zone. Well, I suppose in your comfort zone, isn't it? Yeah, zone of comfort. Oh my gosh, I need to wake my brain up.
Me too.
So yes, we need to be pushing ourselves to fail, to be okay with failure and see it instead of seeing it as something bad. And that's, we all, that's how the kind of narrative is it's a bad thing. It's actually such an important, positive thing that we should all be striving to do more of, and stop worrying about the outcome, but just really kind of looking at the process of how we're getting to the thing in the end.
Totally. I mean, the thing about it is, if you're not failing, you're not trying. If you're ironically, if you're failing, you're winning. Because, and I heard this ages ago. Somebody said, and I've used it many times because I think it's such a brilliant way of putting it, which is that success is on the same road as failure, but it's just further down the road. Because what we so often do is when we fail, we've got a thumbs up. When we fail, so often we give up because we fail. But actually, successful people have failed 1,000 times over. But the reason why they're successful is because they've been willing to fail and get back up again and keep going. Because again, success is just a bit further down the road, the same road that failure's on. And also, it's like, how much you're succeeding is really in direct proportion to how much you're failing. Because again, if you're not failing, you're not actually doing, because we all fail. And actually, I think we need to start reframing failure as a kind of success, because the more you fail, the more likely you are to succeed. The more you fail, the more you're putting in the work, the more you're taking the action. Inevitably, we're all going to fail. And, again, anyone who has found success in their life has undoubtedly failed many, 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 many times over. We cannot reach true success, whatever that looks like for you, without failing many times along the way. So we should be striving to fail rather than avoiding it. And also, the other thing is that you know, like I said just now, it's so easy to be tempted to quit and to give up as soon as you fail. But actually, any failure just means you're a little bit further towards the success that you're looking for. So I think it really is this question of just completely reframing what failure is. I personally just don't even believe in the concept of failure. I just don't think there's any such thing as failure. It's like, it's, you know, but we've been conditioned to believe that failure is a bad thing, when in actual fact, failure is a really, really good thing that we should all be striving for.
Failure is feedback. It's literally
Yeah.
feedback. And you know, all the greatest people, you know, all the inventors have had to fail thousands and thousands and thousands of times before they finally got that breakthrough. And that is how we have progress. Without being able to fail, you're never going to have progress. You're never going to have new inventions. And it's just how, you know, I think for a lot of us, actually, it's just like the more you fail, then you can fail fast and you can move on and course correct and go on to the next thing. And rather than actually just kind of stretching out because we're so scared that it might not work, or, you know, and it's just something we've got to really reprogram our minds to accept that actually it's a really positive thing, not a negative thing. I wonder why it all started out as such a negative thing. I don't know where that's come from. And actually, often so many good things come from mistakes. I mean, another thing I was thinking about this morning was one of a big mistake I made when I was, and I'm in this zone at the moment with my middle son, so we're doing kind of university applications and all of that sort of thing. And I was telling him, I remember that when I was doing my UCAS form back in the day, and then it was called an UCA form, and I wanted to do deferred entry because I was planning on taking a gap year and going traveling with my friend to Brazil. But I had forgotten I missed crossing out the date of the year I wanted to go to university. And so all my offers were for the following year. So I didn't get to do the gap year. And I only just got the grades to go to university in Edinburgh. So I ended up missing the gap year. And at the time, I was so annoyed with myself. I could have easily have probably now I can say, why didn't I not take the gap year? But at the time, I thought I had to go to university. But actually, if I hadn't have made that mistake and done that failure, I would never have met my now husband, who I've been with since then. So, you know, actually, sod it. These things you can hold on to and go, oh my God, that was such a big mistake and I shouldn't have done that. But actually, there's always a silver lining, I think, to every mistake. There's always something good which comes out of it.
Totally. Rejection is redirection. I mean, you hear a lot of people say that, and it's so true. Rejection is redirection. And if you look back over your life, I mean, I can look back over my life and all the times I've quote unquote failed, but it sent me down the path that I was meant to go down. So we have to think about rejection as being redirection. And going back to what you were saying about you don't know where it's come from, I think it starts in school. You know, I think it starts in school because we are all held up against each other. Who gets the highest mark in their exam? And if you get below 50% or whatever the fuck it is, you have failed. I mean, I know you used to be a teacher, but I am so anti the education system in so many ways. I think we're taught completely the wrong things in school. I think we need to get rid of some of the, you know, classic subjects and add in more things about, you know, how to fail and how to use your thoughts to your advantage, how to create, you know, how to go about creating the life that you want. There are so many subjects in school that we just don't get taught, and then you kind of get spat out into the real world. And actually, so much of what we're taught at school does F all.
I know.
I'm really sorry to say this, but I'm not sorry to say it. No, but it's because it's true.
I couldn't agree more.
You know. Well, that's the thing. School makes you feel all the way along. And I was not academic at school. My brother and sister were super academic. They both went to top universities. They were really, really academic. They got A's and they just did really well. And I was always like the musical one. I was really good at music, but I was not good in academia, not least because I didn't give a shit about it. And I was quite frankly more interested in the boys at school. And I went to a mixed boarding school. Big mistake. But I felt throughout school, and I think you don't realise how much of an impact that has on you in your life, but throughout school, academic wise, I felt like a fucking failure because I never got the occasionally, but you know, more often than not, I was not getting the high grades. And you're constantly comparing yourself to the people that are getting A's, and you know, the 90 something percent or the 80 something percent, and it just makes you feel like you're a failure. This is where it comes from. It's
So
it's it's
I know
school that
it's
puts it
so
into our
frustrating
brain.
because when I look back, when I was teaching in primary schools, we did do a lot of work on, well, I did anyway, because I on growth mindsets and fixed mindset and trying to encourage children to make mistakes. And, you know, we really were aware of that. And I would really like to believe that that kind of work is continuing in our schools because I was aware of it and we were teaching that. But I think the problem is the moment you go to secondary school, a lot of that goes out the window because
Yeah.
they've got to get you through your GCSEs. They have the pressure of getting you through your GCSEs and doing all the exams.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, and it's rubbish. Anyway, we could rant about
I
schools for
know. Well,
ages. The
but it
education
is.
system.
But there is no doubt that it's that sort of instills in us this idea that, you know, to fail is a bad thing because we're made to feel at school like when we fail an exam that that's a bad thing. And Rachel below has just said my grandmother wouldn't speak to me for 2 years because I dropped out of uni. This is so interesting because my sister gets really irritated with me. So my sister has 4 kids. You were at school with my sister, so you know
I
her.
know.
So
Yeah.
she has 4 kids. You know, she has triplets who have just were 18 in August, and then my eldest nephew is 21. And basically, one of my nephews, he wants to be a musician. He's been in a band for years. He's hugely talented musician. He's amazing, and that is what he wants to do. And I personally believe that if he makes the decision that he wants to make a career out of music, he can make that happen. He just has to believe in himself and he just has to keep taking action towards it. He has to keep playing, he has to keep writing, he has to keep gigging. And anyway, he has gone to university. So the triplets, there are 2 boys and a girl, and the 2 boys have both started at university. But Blue, my niece, is deferred for a year, so she's taking a gap year. And one of the boys, that my nephew who wants to be a musician, he is kind of struggling with university. And I said to him, and he phoned me up the other day, actually, we had a long chat, and I was like, babe, seriously, you know, it's if university isn't for you, it's not the worst thing. You know, I personally did not enjoy my years at university, and university is made out to be, we're all made to think that you have to go to university. You know, you've got to go to school and then you have to go to university, and if you don't go to university, you know, it's this really bad thing. I've been saying to the kids for several years, to the rolling eyes of my sister, or rather glaring from my sister, been saying to them, when they were doing their GCSEs and A levels, I would say to those kids, please, can you hear me when I tell you that the results that you get in your GCSEs and your A levels are not a predictor of the success of the rest of your life. So please do not put too much on how you, I mean, they've all done really well as it happens, but I just wanted to say to them, even if you do badly in your A levels, this does not mean that your life is fucked. You can still be and do whatever you want in your life, because it's not about, you know, getting 80% in you know, it's not about doing really well in your exams. It's just not about that. So yeah, I think anyway, with him, I have said, you know, basically dropping out of university is not a failure. If university is, and this is a good example of something that could be perceived as being a real failure, it's like, I'm just seeing what Rachel says. Agree, Lucy. The way it was presented to me, the only people who don't go to uni are those kids who are not clever. Absolutely not true. Exactly. It's such a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
There are plenty of successful people in this world, really well-known successful people who did not go to university, who left school at 16 and just made shit happen. So I think we just have to understand this and realize that you know, things that are in, you know, according to society, according to the kind of cultural narrative, things that are a failure, like quitting university or like quitting a job. I mean, as you know, I've walked away from a couple of supposedly really good jobs because I knew they weren't right for me. And I'm quite sure that some of the people around me saw that as some sort of failure. But actually, I see it as the complete opposite. I see walking away from something that isn't right for you as a success, not a failure. But it always comes down to bloody conditioning, doesn't it? We are so conditioned to think that, you know, if you put 10 years into being an accountant, let's say, and you go to university and you study it, I don't know why I'm picking that, but if you study accountancy and then you become an accountant and you have a good job and you have a good salary and you have a good pension, if you then decide that actually you couldn't give a flying fuck about being an accountant and it's making you miserable and you want to do something else, probably a lot of people around you would think you were insane to quit that and try something completely different. That would be perceived as some kind of failure, but it's not. It's so frustrating. I think so often we stay doing things because we think it will be some kind of a failure if we choose to walk away, but it is not. Often quitting something can be the best thing you ever did, and certainly for me it has been. When I've quit jobs because I knew damn well that they were not right for me, I didn't, even though people around me might have seen that as a failure, I actually saw it as the opposite, you know.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, me too. I've kind of quit, I quit teaching, I quit my franchise business, and just because I knew they weren't right. And again, yes, it could easily have been seen as failure, but I just knew that they were just stepping stones to the next thing.
Yeah.
And every single one of them, I don't regret any of it. You can still, you can take the learnings out of each experience and take them on to the next thing. And I think that's what failure is. It's just feedback. It's just giving you, it's not, I mean, like failure needs to have a new word, because failure kind of immediately puts you into that thought process that actually it wasn't a good thing. But actually, each one of them is teaching you something new so that you can move on to the next thing and just continue your journey of growth and expansion. It's just virtually impossible otherwise to grow and learn, isn't it? Without any of it. And if you think, I mean, this is the thing about failure as well. It's every single, oh no, I've already said that. Oh my gosh, I was about to say about Edison and the light bulb, but I think I might have said that. But he did
you didn't specify him, but I know what you're going to say, and you're so right. So please do say it.
No, well, I was going to say that I think it was thousands and thousands of times he failed with the light bulb, and then suddenly he got it.
Yeah.
And then we have the light bulb, which is used by everybody. And that is just a really good example of do it again, do it again, do it again.
It's such a good example, Polly, because exactly that. It's like, had he given up, then we may or may not have still had electricity and the light bulb or whatever, but ultimately the fact that he was willing to keep failing meant that eventually he got to the success that he was looking for. What's that analogy when you're sort of when you're digging for gold? And in fact, there's a story about someone who was digging for gold for months and years or however long it was, and then they gave up. They gave up. They quote unquote failed, and then the next person came along and found the gold, because that had that person and again, it's going back to that analogy of success being just a bit further down the same road as failure. If you quit because you think you have failed, then you are holding yourself back from success, because in order to succeed, you've got to keep going. And I know I said this before, but it really is true that most people you look at who are successful, we don't see the previous 10 years of their life where they failed over and over and over again. And sometimes you've got to just chuck stuff out there. You've got to experiment. You've just got to ultimately, we have to just keep going. And if you want,
it's that resilience, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's that you just have to have that that kind of mentality of just not giving up. It's
Exactly.
kind of like you don't just fail and then go, okay, well that's
Yeah.
it, I'm done. It's actually you fail and you go, okay, right, what can I do now? What's the next step? Let's do it again. It's building that resilience to keep on going. It's like, babies when they're learning to walk, they don't just try and learn to walk and then fall over and go, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore. They just get up again and again. And it is literally that you've got to get up again and again. Otherwise you're never going to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
kids are such good examples like about this, riding a bicycle, whatever it is, it's do it again, that
Yeah.
repetition, and then you'll get there to wherever you want to go. And I
Totally.
think that's just something we've got to remember as adults going through life. If we get knocked down, dust yourself off,
Yeah.
up you get, carry on with it. And I know it can feel really bloody difficult when you just feel like you're being knocked down again and again and again. But the more times you get knocked down, the more times you're going to get up, and yet further, you're going to be further down the road towards your goal, towards whatever it is you want to do. But it's building that resilience. And every time you get knocked down, you're going to become that little bit more resilient, which
Yeah.
is even better. You're more resilient, more resilient.
Totally.
So
There's
yeah.
there's an expression, I don't know if I'm going to get this completely right, but it goes something along the lines of successful people, basically successful people keep hanging on when everyone else has let go. And it's that's essentially what we're saying here, isn't it? It's like, and I truly believe that if there is something that you want to achieve in your life, if there's something that you want to do, somewhere you want to get, you can get there, provided you do not quit, and provided that when you fail along the way, that's the thing. The true failure is stopping trying.
Yes.
Like that is the failure. The failure is to stop trying because you failed something, or quote unquote failed something. And obviously this is different to giving up something that isn't right for you. But if you stop trying because you have some kind of disappointment or some kind of failure, that in itself is far more of a failure than the failure itself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, oh, totally. It's the giving up is the failure. If you try something and then you give up, you try it once, give it up, then that is a failure.
Yeah.
But if you try it and keep going, trying and keep going, that is actually exactly what we all need. We all need to be doing to get to where we want to go.
Do you know what this also just made me think of, Polly? It all, I swear to God, this is one of my favorite topics, as you know. I'm obsessed with this idea that we've got to stop worrying about what other people think. And I swear, so much of the time when we fail, the reason that we don't get back up and keep carrying on is because we feel like we're going to look like a dick. We feel like we're going to be judged. We feel like people are going to laugh at us. And I mean, this is now going on to a completely different topic, but it is connected. And I believe this in my heart so deeply, that if we can let go of worrying about what the people around us thinking, then we can more easily keep going. It's because so often we might feel like a bit of a dick if we fail something and we don't want to, I don't know, say for some reason this example has just come to me. Say you want to get into medical school and you fail first time. I mean, how many people would probably just go, oh my God, I didn't get in, I'm a failure, I'm going to quit. But actually, there are plenty of people who have failed to get into medical school the first time and even the second time, but then they've got in the third time because they haven't allowed that kind of shame of the failing the first time round. They've tried again and they've tried again until they've got there. It's that thing of you keep going until that's the mindset you've got to get in. It's like you keep going and going until it's funny, people have sort of said to me, but people who are very close to me have asked the question of, so what's your time limit of of this thing that you're trying to do with your life, and you're trying to build this business and blah blah blah, and when's it going to succeed and when are you going to get there? And so many of the people around me, again, people who are close to me, are thinking that there has to be some kind of time limit. But as far as I'm concerned, I will keep going until I get there. Like, I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah.
But what I won't get there if I stop, if I don't carry on.
Yeah.
But it's not a question of when. It's a question of, well, it is a question of when rather. But it's that thing of I keep going until I get there.
Yeah.
And there is no time limit. If you want to do something in your life, you truly want to do it, and it really means so much to you, and you have that kind of why. What is your why? When you have that very, very strong why, you just that helps you, I think, keep going and going and going, even when people around you are questioning what you're doing and asking you, well, how long are you going to give this?
But
It's like,
also,
well,
Lucy, I also think though it's so interesting because and I think though when you do get there, then it takes all the fun out of it to a certain extent. Because, well, I don't know, because you've kind of
yeah,
arrived. I think when you arrive there, it's like actually the fun part is the process, and of course
the
it's great when you get
journey.
there. It's going to be great, but the journey to get there
Yeah,
actually is when you look back. And it's like, oh, that is the really fun bit.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know. I mean, I had it funny only because I had this conversation with Giles the other day. So he, for 20 odd years, 25 years, has been kind of had these goals, really struggled, loads of setbacks all the way. And then there's sort of this realization that he's kind of got to where he had set out to get himself to. And it's almost like, and then now he's a bit like,
what's the next
oh, I want to
thing?
go do something. I want to do something else now. I want to go do something else now. It's kind of like, but yeah, so you kind of like, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? That it's kind of it almost takes the kind of the momentum and the joy out of the thing. So we've got to relish these feelings of like, okay, these setbacks
Yeah,
along the way, because actually that's what makes it so much more
yeah,
fun. Because when you overcome it and you achieve it to the next step,
yeah,
it's like, yes, this is all good. So it's all these little wins rather than focusing on the goal, the end goal, and feeling like you failed because you haven't got to the end goal. That's just
yeah,
we've got to give ourselves little mini interim goals,
yeah,
and just head towards those, because otherwise, we're aiming for perfection far
yeah,
too quickly, and that just isn't possible. It's like, and that,
totally. And I mean, obviously, we've got to keep that end goal in mind. I think that's really important, but we mustn't attach to that end goal. It's like, and exactly like you say, you just got to get to the next sort of milestone, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And this is just, funnily enough, this has just made me think of Liam Payne, who's just so sadly
oh,
died
I
last week.
know.
It's just so incredibly sad, but I just still can't quite believe it. It's just such a waste of a life. But anyway, the reason this conversation has made me think of Liam Payne is because take One Direction, I think actually when we achieve something like that as an overnight success, when you get catapulted to the to the destination, literally overnight, it's not necessarily a good thing. And so often when we have to keep going and going and going and going, and we have failure after failure after failure, and then we eventually get there, not because apart from anything else, it is the journey, not the arrival. That is one of the kind of main things about life. We've got to enjoy the journey. We've got to learn to enjoy the journey. But actually, when you have all of those setbacks and it takes time to get there, then you're kind of ready when you get there. And
Yeah.
and also I think there's a certain feeling of such incredible satisfaction that doesn't happen in the same way when you just get catapulted. In the case of some, say like One Direction, who of course they had to win the competition, but actually those boys, they were 16,
They were
17,
so
18.
young.
It's overnight. Like I've always thought that about these kind of these sort of, particularly these like singing competitions where somebody just becomes a success overnight. I just have always thought that is just not the way it should be, and I just don't think it's a good thing. So yeah, I think it's just, we've got to remember that is, failure. Ultimately, going back to failure is a part of the journey to get to where we want to. And without failure, we're not going to get there, because every single person who has ever got anywhere, whatever that means, has failed along the way. So if we're not failing, we're not actually winning. So aim to fail.
Love it. Thanks, Rachel,
Yeah.
for your comments.
I'll just read Rachel's comment.
Yeah.
She said she agreed with what Polly said just now. I've been asked what my end goal is. I answer that I don't want an M because what happens then? Well, exactly.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
look for the next
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah,
We're done.
let's
We're only
we're
done. It's
done.
half
And
past.
I mean, another example of failure is are these lives, we some like today, brain fog kicked in, lost my train of thought. But actually, again, I'm not going to worry about it. And I could,
Yeah.
I could easily just sit here and go, oh my God, what am I talking about? This is so crap. But actually, all of these lives are good practice about talking, about expressing ourselves,
Totally.
and it's all good.
And also,
There's no
may
failure.
I just say, just to add to what you've said, I also feel this morning like I've been an absolute bumbling idiot, just going, and it's funny,
Never.
isn't it? How but we
Yes,
keep going, we keep
I
going,
know.
and we keep going, and we keep going. Anyway, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, if you've been listening and got this far, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, love.
All right, take it easy. See you
You too. Lots of
soon.
love, babe. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Bye.